right, and it's now 14 minutes to 8 local time. We want to come to a conclusion as we look at the China-Kenya trade relations. And of course, now we want to speak to innovation. And I'll start with you, Honorable Kirwa. Should Kenya be looking at exporting more than importing? We seem to be a consuming economy that seems to bring in a lot, but we hardly send out. And of course, China would be a good place to start if the trip by the president in November would negotiate on behalf of the farmer so that we're able to get some agricultural produce out there. Our innovation.
Yeah, the foundation of all this is the fact that we should know ourselves. What are we good at? And farming is still doing better than any other business in Kenya today. And therefore, we should be spending more and getting more innovative so as to increase our productivity as a farming nation, both in terms of the fish industry and any other industry. But what is lacking in Kenya is that even at the position of making the budget, we agreed in Maputo, we agreed in Malebo, and we have already said under sustainable development that we need to up our agriculture up to 10%. Today, if you are to look at the budget for agriculture sector and what we are doing as a nation, it is less than 2%. Therefore, we are far away from ensuring that we build the necessary infrastructure for fish farmers, maize farmers, and all other farmers, so that without even subsidizing, you build the infrastructure like the livestock farmers complaining in Kajiado. We have not built infrastructure at KMC to ensure that we offtake whatever the farmers want to give to us. That is one fundamental issue that unless we do that, food security pillar that the president is talking about will come to a naught. The second issue is when we're going for such trips, are we going because we want to go to China? What I've seen with Kenya, and even for the period I was minister, is people are quick to get onto the plane and hope that they are going to use some kind of miracle to negotiate their position once they reach there. We should fundamentally organize ourselves and say, what is the irreducible minimum that we can go for as a nation before we go?
And this must be what they will do before we agree.
Yeah, we should be doing it here before we go there.
Okay, in fact, it reminds me of a meme that was doing rounds. I don't know if you gentlemen and lady got to see it, but even in the US, when we had our delegation that went, on the side of the US, you'd have pen and paper basically on their tables. On the Kenyan side, everybody would be seated waiting. Kembi Gitura, your thoughts on how we need to be more innovative and ensure that we also stand our ground when it comes to dealing with other countries, even if they're going to be funding some of the projects that we need to have done?
In my view, agriculture is important, but it cannot be sustainable as the engine for development of this country. And we have open borders, and we're going to continue having even more open borders as time goes on. Now we have the East Africa community. I look forward to the day that we are going to have a free trade area in the whole of Africa, what we call the South-South trade, so that we're able to trade amongst ourselves. And for innovation, that in my view is where now Kenya would come in. Manufacturing is very important. A lot of manufactured goods in the region are coming from Kenya. They may not be very high-end, but a lot of we selling a lot of manufactured good in the region, in the East Africa community, all the way to DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. And in my view, this is where we should put in more emphasis, manufacturing. We may start small. You may think that what is happening in Gikomba is not important, but what happens in Gikomba is very, very important. We can innovate it so that it is not done by hand through and through. We have innovative ways of building those, the boxes for the kids when they're going to school. We have more innovative ways of even things like bicycles, which I believe we are still importing, or I don't know where we're getting them from, and things like those.
Probably China.
Maybe. We must go to manufacturing of finished products, not parts, but finished products, which can be sold sustainably in the region in the first instance. And because we are, like I say, we have the East Africa Community Bloc as one building block towards a FTA. We have SADC in Southern Africa. We have the Central Africa, bloc also, and the West African bloc. And these are the building blocks to having one Africa continent where we can have a borderless continent, where they have in Europe. Because we must borrow. We must borrow from other people. Even we must borrow from China. And we must work on transfer of technology to our country. Nobody is going to, I mean, you can only improve the engine that there is now for a motor vehicle, for instance, but the engine is already there. We can start small. I've always thought, Michael, remember in the 80s, President Moi started what was called the Nyayo car. You ask me, I think he was very foresighted. And then there was infrastructure for the Nyayo vehicle. I remember it was tested at the inaugural ride at Kasarani. It failed. He didn't make the lap. But still, I think it was very innovative. And 36 years down the line, if we had followed that line, maybe we would be having a motor vehicle, whatever shape, whatever size, the way the Indians did, you know, when they pushed on the Peugeot 403.
Right.
If you remember the Peugeot 403, and it became almost compulsory that you must buy an Indian vehicle. And they built their industry. Today, they are big manufacturers of motor vehicles.
Correct.
In the world. So I think the question of innovation is very important. And I think visions like the one that President Moi had in the 80s about a Nyayo vehicle, yeah, people laughed about it. But I believe today, 36 years down the line, maybe we'll be having lots of vehicles much cheaper, fully manufactured here, not assembled here,
but
created
locally.
and manufactured
Right.
here, which I think would help the economy because then they'll find their way into the regional market and maybe into the global market.
Okay. Whether talking about borrowing from China and learning from China, it is unfortunate that I was reading through some document and there's an upsurge of Chinese manufacturing companies that have set up shop in Kenya and they're making money.
Yes.
Which tells me or alludes to the fact that we seem to be getting something wrong. These are Chinese manufacturing companies that are getting their raw material here in Kenya, manufacturing and making money. Why aren't we doing that ourselves?
Yeah, I think it is because we are pursuing what is called a voodoo economy. Voodoo economy is we are swimming, please let's do Nyayo car, let us do this. In the kingdom's economy, the kingdom of God, he said it is not good for man to be alone. It means we, as human beings, we are all interconnected, all of us. So how do you get into that economy? You provide value. You provide something which somebody else is not providing. So going to China to go and bring some machines to make some parts is not providing value. Because they'll do it better. They'll make better cars, they'll make better aeroplanes. What we have, which Jehovah himself gave us, is good land, good climate. If you go to China and you take their tea, they are just taking some grass and they call it tea. You have to boil a bunch of them. When you take the Kenyan tea, just a bit, coffee, pyrethrum. In other words, we should have been dominating the world in an area. Which area do we have? Agriculture. Now we have left that, so we are doing hip-hop. Let's try manufacturing here. Let's go to Gikomba and make some plates. Let us do this and this. That is the voodoo economy. So when you go to China and you find they are doing it better, you bring it here. We must retrace. We must reconcile and say, let us reclaim our position in the world with our coffee, with our tea, with our pyrethrum. I hear rumors, I don't know, that the food that is eaten at Buckingham Palace comes from Kenya, Naivasha. I hear that. That means God made sure that you have an area through which you dominate. But the enemy came and picked. So what do? We go and get clothes from there. We go and do this. And our leaders also, they are lost. That is where we come back. Now we are importing even eggs from Uganda, chicken from Uganda. You don't need to blame the devil himself. We blame ourselves.
We have put ourselves where we are. All right, we are running out of time, so let me come to Elizabeth for your closing comments as we wrap this up.
Okay, I think the reason why the industries are not performing here is really because of the power cost. Yeah, I sit in KEPSA. I'm a member of the Private Sector Alliance through the business, and the complaints have been laid down squarely to the president that look at the cost of power in this country. Most industries have shut down because of that. That has encouraged the imports, because you look at it vis-a-vis how much are you paying for your power to run a factory, rather than import that product and sell it, it turns out much cheaper. The Chinese themselves, the industries that, some of the industries that they're running here, they actually bring the parts and assemble it locally here. We had Rivertex, you know, and we used to do very good cotton. That has, places like that have shut down. And then you ask yourself, we do the Masai shukas, that has become a trademark like worldwide. I mean, you see everybody wearing it. Why can't we encourage that to be done in a larger scale? Why can't the government supplement, yes, exactly, supplement these sort of industries, either by reducing the power cost or pumping in some money, what they used to do before? Why has that died? Now, coming to the SGR, the threat, I think we shouldn't take it lightly. We've had the railway line for over 100 years that was built here, many, many years during the time when we were a British colony. It is still viable. You know, the line is still there. Really, we should also look at rehabilitating that line. Why do we depend on these things that are coming today when we've lived with other things all along and we've done business before?
All right, well put. Honorable Kilroy, your closing comments.
Thank you for this opportunity. I think what we need to understand, and this is something that is natural, whether I would say it is God-given, that plants are specific in terms of the altitude, the latitude, and also the position from the equator. Such that coffee is different that you manufacture in Ethiopia and that is grown here in Kenya is different. Tea in Kirinyaga is different from tea in Kericho. Now, what does that mean to us as Kenyans? We have such a unique situation that we need to rediscover ourselves and make sure that we increase productivity. The key word is increase productivity. Once you increase productivity, instead of producing 10 bags of maize per acre, you produce 40. You can sell it at a half price, and you are still capturing the market and stopping importation. When it comes to maize farming, what the government needs to do is to do crop zoning throughout the country, followed by liming of the soil, because our soil have locked chemicals in them, such that maize from Uganda is cheaper than maize from Kenya. Finally, is what Elizabeth has been saying. We must think of factors that can reduce cost of production so that we're able to capture the local market and also move to the region.
All right. Honorable Kembe Gitura, very briefly, your closing comments.
All these are very important questions. And you talk about agriculture. Personally, I think we must move on from agriculture. We keep agriculture because we have to feed our nation, but also think outside the box and think what else we can do to increase our productivity, not just in Kenya, but within the region, so that we improve our economy. And you must ask yourself, where I come from, the mainstay has and was always coffee and tea. But why has the coffee farmer gone down and started growing bananas, macadamia, and other things? I think these are the questions that we need to ask. Because the farmer is not a foolish person. He grows these crops so that he can benefit from them. If coffee, although it is Kenya coffee is still in such high demand in the world, or the Kenya flowers, if he is not benefiting enough from that coffee, then he must move on to a seasonal crop, like veggies, you know, things that will pay him, because the infrastructure is now better in the roads. You can do vegetables, and if you're in Moranga, bring them to Nairobi because the market is so big, instead of waiting for a whole year to be paid for your coffee, which then is so, the payments are so deducted that at the end of the day you get virtually nothing. So we need to work out the whole system and know where the chain is broken so that we can fix it. But the way things are at the moment, we are going to see that we're going to have less and less production of things like tea. You find people you see in Nyeri, people are uprooting their tea. In other places like Muranga. Why? Because they feel that they are being cheated out of their crop.
Out of their crop.
So right. I think we need to think why these things are happening, and then maybe we might improve the production.
Weda, very briefly, your closing comment.
Let us be known for something. We have the best natural resources. Our people can run. We have the best parks in the world. We have the best climate. Please, Mr. President, let us focus so that when you say I'm a Kenyan and you're in Malaysia, they say, did you come with some tea? Did you come with some coffee? How is Savo National Park? Please, then we will reap all the money. all the good people with all the millions the world over are known for something, providing value to the marketplace.
Thank you very much. Ambrose Weda there, who's a lawyer. Honorable Kembe Gitura, immediate former senator from Murang'a County. We also have Honorable Kipruto Arap Kiro, deputy party leader, ANC, and Elizabeth Kimkong, who's KANU Women National Congress. Thank you all for joining us this morning on the State of the Nation. And